Mr. War Report coming live every Tuesday at 7 with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. In the voice of NEW, Vince Berry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT? Handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here. No safe space. Now listen in. Time to hear from some of the greats.
I really didn't have a choice, I guess, right?
I can't hear it. I threw my headphones away. I can't hear any of you.
You know what, Vince? Put your headphones on. Vince, listen. I'll say this. I'll say this. Listen, I'll say this. They didn't change the fucking music, which was, you know, this was the most opportune time to do it. They didn't do it, but we got a heel turn, and we got Paul Heyman.
No vest. That's the other thing.
And no vest. I mean, in the scheme of things, I'll take it.
And shining your teeth.
This is true. Shining your teeth, for sure, for sure. So yes, this is the War Report podcast brought to you by TagMeDate.com, the first and only dating site exclusively for fans of pro wrestling. We convene every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time to talk all things wrestling. Of course, we had a... God, I don't even remember. I'm so bad. Was there a takeover?
There was a takeover.
There was a takeover. Why don't I remember watching
that?
No. That was last week, right?
That was last week.
Okay, good.
All we have,
losing my mind.
All we have this week really is Payback, Raw, and SmackDown.
Thank God, because I remember that happened.
Of the takeover.
And I just have to say, I was not happy about the fact that Payback was a week after SummerSlam.
No.
I will, though, say I thought it was a great pay-per-view. I actually enjoyed most of it. And this week in wrestling, even Monday, couple issues, of course. But for the most part, I was pretty entertained. And SmackDown has the story of the year. So I'm gravitated to SmackDown.
What's the story of the year on SmackDown?
Braun Strowman. Fucking Bray Wyatt, The Fiend. Like, to me, I will tune in every Friday just to watch The Fiend. And I do kind of like, you know, they're still teasing. I mean, listen, we got a little sneak peek of Alexa Bliss / Harley Quinn action, you know, which, you know, listen, I'm a fan of the story. I think Braun is getting the short end of the stick. I don't know what's going on with Braun or who he pissed off. But he lost both, obviously, because Fiend's not going to get pinned. Of course, Roman comes back. But in a heelish way, he wins the title. I didn't hate it. I knew it. You know what? I hate the fact that the Fiend lost the belt, but I didn't hate it.
Fear it, run from it. The big dog is inevitable. That's just
when I heard Roman say to the ref, "Count, bitch," I got excited. Because we've been asking for a Roman heel turn for so long, we now got it. I mean...
Yes, I hope so. I mean, I know it's still... But what I'm saying is, I'm hoping that this is like... They're investing... So, you remember Hulk Hogan in WCW? Never really worked out in the red and yellow. Had to turn into Hollywood.
Right. Greatest thing that happened to his career. Go ahead.
Right, but they went for it 100%.
Yeah,
they need to do this 100%. Paul Heyman is the right step.
But it looks like that's what they're doing.
I hope so. I just, you know...
Keep the hope alive, brother. Keep the hope alive. We got Heyman back on TV. Roman's not going to say much because we have Heyman. It's just a perfect thing. It's going to be great. So. There's no vest. There's no vest.
We don't know that yet, but there has been no vest. As long as there's no vest, I'm way more on board.
For me, all jokes aside, what solidified the heel turn for me is the way he won that belt was a heel move.
Well, yeah.
You know,
definitely
the
was.
fact that you wait for the two of them to beat the holy shit out of each other to then come out and sign the contract in a broken ring, like everything just worked. It was well done. I was happy with it. I mean, I'm still wishing, why give it to the Fiend to then have him lose it a week later?
The whole thing
that
yeah.
bothers me.
Well,
But
because they did a whole SummerSlam is supposed to be your biggest pay-per-view of the summer, second only to WrestleMania, this, that, and the other thing. And then they just decided, you know what, fuck it. If imagine if this were back in the day and you paid $35 or $40 or $50 for SummerSlam. And then they're just like, oh, by the way, next week we're going to have a pay-per-view and the one that you paid for doesn't fucking matter. Nothing that happened on that show has any consequence. But now that it's only $10 a month, they can do that to you. So you're still getting fucked, but you're not getting fucked as hard. It's like this Tuesday in Texas. They did the Survivor Series this Tuesday in Texas, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan title flip-flop deal. And they only did it to sell tickets for the Tuesday pay-per-view to see if Tuesday pay-per-views would work. It was like immediately after. But anyway, I agree. It wasn't a bad show. Can I just, I'm going to sound like such an old man. And you're going to call me Jim Cornette. Can we talk about the rules for a second? The rules of professional wrestling. There's two things that I want that I bugged me. One of them was the finish to that match, and I understand it's supposed to bug you. It's a heel thing, blah, blah, blah. But to me, if you don't sign that contract before the bell rings, you're not in the match. If Dana White tells you that you're going to fight and you don't sign the contract, you're not on that pay-per-view. Vince McMahon had people. Here's the thing. In the past, Jeff Jarrett and the Ultimate Warrior both held up Vince McMahon for more money on their last day, saying that they wouldn't go out unless he paid them more. He sent them out there. They did their match. He paid them. And then the next day, fucking fired him. If this was real life, if this was really what happened with Roman Reigns and he didn't sign that contract until the end of the match and just walked out and won the title, he'd be fired. Vince McMahon would just fire him, and that would be it. And maybe he's going to, maybe there's going to be some McMahon Reigns drama again because Vince has been on TV and Adam Pearce has been on TV as like his gopher guy.
I actually really like that Adam Pearce is on TV.
I like Adam Pearce.
He's not most of the wrestlers.
But it's just so funny because he's like, he was a good wrestler and like, had a lot going for him, just never made it into the, through the WWE system into the main event. But anyway, so there was that. And I'm like, okay, I understand why they did it, and that kind of made sense to me because, it's a heel, and yes, I guess they can sign the contract because the match hasn't ended. I don't know. People can, enter a match with the Money in the Bank contract, and it starts. All right, whatever. The other one that fucking bugged the shit out of me, and bugged me more than this, the Roman Reigns thing. Shayna Baszler choked out Bayley with Sasha's arm, and there were two members of that tag team in the ring at the same time. That doesn't count. The referee should have made a 5 count to get one of them out of the ring because you can't have, there's only one legal person in at the same time. The fact that she tapped out is irrelevant. If there's 2 people in the ring, it's not legal. You have to clear the ring 1-on-1. That's the rule. I understand why they did it to make Shayna look strong, and she did.
Not to mention, it did look cool. Like, you have to.
Cool,
I thought it was a great finish.
Like, I don't know.
I understand what you're saying about the rules.
It was a creative finish,
but it was a good finish.
Oh no! Here's the thing. In the moment, I liked it. I'm like, oh, that's neat. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Again, I think about wrestling like it's a if you're presenting this on TV, you got to treat it like it's a shoot, and not that this is just silly time where you can jerk off with your friends and make T-shirts.
Right.
So like, I'm just thinking like. The referee should have said, no, there's 2 people in that hold. What do you, but then I know sometimes when tag team, like they'd hit the heart attack and Brett would make the pin and
right.
Anvil would be on top of him, or like the Steiners would do the Steiner line and then it would be Scott. And then, Dogface Gremlin was on top and posing. I get it. You can do a double pin like that and the ref won't not count the fall. But I just thought it was weird because there's no precedent for it. And it's unique because it's never happened before, but it's also like, this is something where, again, if it happened in a fight or like a baseball game and something weird like this happened, they'd have to like stop and have a conference, and the referees have to talk about it and be like, "What's the call?" So I don't know. It was a good finish. It took the titles off. The people that it was supposed to take the titles off being the Fiend and the Golden Role Models, which also, by the way, that's a ripoff of the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Ibushi in New Japan. But anyway, no, I just, that was my little minor gripe, was like, goddamn follow the rules. But anyway, aside from that, no, Payback was good. It's just weird that so much happened on SummerSlam and then so much happened on Payback. They were a week apart. It's just kind of like,
yeah, it's a lot.
It's weird.
It's
a lot to take in.
I go back to Keith Lee. Like I went with my gut that Keith Lee was going to go over on Orton. I was right. But even that
one wrong.
Like now it appears that super power bomb is going to be his finish. But when you're used to seeing like his version of the jackhammer, it just seemed like a very abrupt finish. Like I wasn't expecting Orton to
They changed the finish around because this is a Japanese thing too. But I'll tell you guys.
They still need to go back to his other music too.
Oh no, the music thing is completely fucked. But apparently that's an issue with.
Thank God it starts with the original thing. Though.
Yeah, that old group, the CFOs, who hasn't been there for a while, who did like Finn's theme and Rollins' Burn It Down theme and all that stuff, and including Keith Lee's Bask in His Glory theme. They signed like a really bad deal with the record company or the label that they were with. So the label actually makes 50% of the profits on every song every time it gets played. And so WWE and the CFOs didn't want that label to make. It was like a predatory contract. So they just didn't want to, keep paying the money. So they're slowly phasing out all this old music. But like, you got to get somebody. Remember when The Rock had like every couple, like a year or two, The Rock's theme would change. It was the same, but it would change.
Yeah.
Do that.
You need a Jim Johnston caliber person. Is what you're saying.
They need. Then apparently they've got a crew, like another two-man group in that's doing it. But their music is so generic. Like they had this whole build-up, bask in his glory, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna come out and powerbomb somebody," and then it just cuts to this butt rock Nickelback bullshit music.
It's horrible. It's fucking horrible.
Why? It makes no sense. At least, I hate to be put a racial spin on this, but could you give the guy like a hip hop beat or something cool? You give him this this sounds like when you go into WWE 2K and you're creating your character and they have like 5 songs for you to pick from, and this is one of them. I'm like, come on, it's just so generic. Give the guy, and the thing is, you hate this. You hate to be pessimistic about it, even though he won on the pay-per-view and then didn't win.
Listen, apparently Vince
Monday.
McMahon is set to push him to the moon. So
right, but it's like he comes out and he's shaved and he's wearing this compression suit like they're ashamed that he's fat or something. And it's like, man, Harley Race was never in shape.
Dusty Rhodes?
Right, Dusty Rhodes was never in shape. But again, that wasn't the Vince guy. Vince's guys were
right.
Hogan and Superstar Graham and even Backlund was jacked. Like all those guys were jacked, but like there's a precedent that wrestlers don't have to be jacked. They can just be brolic, bulky, barrel-chested guys. Like that's kind of like right, like Otis. But so I don't know why if I guess because Otis is right, because Otis is a comedy character, so he can show his fat belly and rub it around or whatever.
He's fucking hilarious.
He is, but Keith Lee can't have his belly exposed. Like I
thought about that too.
Little weird things.
It drives me crazy because not for nothing, the size of him is what makes him that more amazing, because you look at the shit he does and says there's no way he should be able to do that. Exactly. So it takes away from that. I agree with you.
Right, and again, this is another thing that everybody talks about. Oh, when somebody goes from NXT to the main roster, they change everything that made them what they were in NXT, and it's like, yeah, they apparently they do.
I'll never understand that.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's the simplest in anything in your life. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Amen.
It's just so simple.
Listen more.
But I'm cautiously optimistic about Keith Lee because I think he's got a big upside. I think the only thing holding him back is his age. He's a little bit older than what they would typically push for a superstar. But
he's got Vince on his side. Listen, at the end of the day.
Yeah. DDP did it. A lot of people did it at an older age. I
And
mean,
he's
Shawn
still-
Michaels made a comeback in his, in the second time around as an older guy. Triple H was doing main events as an older guy. So I mean, like, and I'm not even saying he's old. He's like 38 or something. But in WWE years, that's kind of old. So again, cautiously optimistic because as everybody's been hearing, apparently Vince is high on Keith Lee. Vince is also apparently very high on Peyton Royce, which is why Billy Kay got murdered on Monday. So, if you see like Killy Bay show up on AEW or Impact, you know what happened. What's Killy Bay doing in the Impact Zone?
She's definitely not going to go anywhere without Peyton. Peyton
so
was the star of that team.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. Peyton is okay. I understand what Vince did. Vince saw Billy Kay and Peyton, and when you put the two of them next to each other, you go, Peyton's prettier than Billy Kay. Even though me and Eric both really like Billy Kay. I think Billy Kay's hot. I think they're both hot. Put it out there.
Yeah. We just think that it just so happens that
I feel
Peyton
like
is not.
right. Vince has a certain type that he gravitates towards, and he likes Billy Kay's look, and I think she's probably the better worker of the two. But even so, it's like the New Day. They're a package deal. Without Billy Kay, I don't know how good Peyton Royce is with promo, and I guess we'll see. But what I'm saying is the whole idea was that they worked better together than they did separately. And even the New Day, even though they're singles guys, they still have the support of their teammates.
And Big E's doing a
going on
good
big
job
singles.
solo right now.
Yeah, and Big E's killing it. So, I mean...
But this person's doing one Uso.
Yeah, well, so look at this. Nikki and Alexa split up. The Golden Role Models, Sasha Banks and Bailey, they're about to split up. They're like 3 days from splitting up, pretty much. Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, split up. What are we doing with this tag team division? Oh, Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, split up. They're just Braun and Alexa's relationship team, Little Big, split them up. It's just like everybody's getting split up, and it's telling you, as a viewer, don't invest in any. If you like something, just enjoy it in the moment. Don't invest in it. Don't think that anything's ever going to happen long term because they're just going to take it away. And like the Iconics really got the shit end of the stick because they got like one women's tag team title reign, and now they're broken up.
They did win at WrestleMania, though.
The Asuka and Kyrie, all of the women's.
Well,
tag
now
teams, for the most
Kyrie,
part,
though, that was, Kyrie's decision to go.
Right. But what I'm saying is that women's tag team division.
What's
Yeah,
happening?
you-
Unless they're gonna start putting more generic teams together like Baszler and Jax. Eric, I saw made a comment in the group, but how he can't stand, how they force feed these generic teams. But I always will go back to look at some of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history. They were just put together. Cesaro and Sheamus most recently is a good example. The Rock and Mick Foley, Edge and Orton. I mean, Miz and Big Show. I mean,
That's all.
what?
I just feel like they do it too much. That's all.
I get it. They do it a
one of
lot,
the
but
things-
but it does work sometimes. Sometimes the
that's-
chemistry's there.
Right. It's one of the things that they like to go back to is the wacky.
I mean, Paul Heyman did that with the Dudley Boys in ECW.
What about the Dudleys?
Paul Heyman did that with the Dudleys. They were just like separate.
Oh
and they
yeah.
had-
That was the joke about it. Was all these guys were like singles guys that they had nothing to do with.
Billy Outlaws is another one.
Yeah, and they were just like, hey, we know you're all different ages and sizes and races and genders and all that, but we're gonna call you Dudley, and you just put the glasses on, and
But,
you're a Dudley.
There's an example of like stuff that didn't work. Like for me, at least, Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler.
No,
or,
that stunk.
or Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler.
The
No.
League of Nations.
I mean, listen, they're not all going to be home
No,
runs.
they're
but-
not all.
I think Retribution any day.
Oh God, can we?
It's got to end already. It's driving me crazy.
So now Retribution is apparently going to be a Raw exclusive. Who the?
Yeah, I just read that today.
But they're a terrorist group. How is a terrorist group exclusive to one brand? This doesn't make any fucking sense. How are terrorists exclusive to Raw rather than SmackDown? Tell me this. Somebody explain it.
As announcing them beforehand.
Yeah. Oh, we knew a new group is debuting, and then what do they like throw a brick through a window? And, yay! Fucking shit is so.
The second time through the hole, it was already there.
I wish they yeah, the hole was already there, but like I wish if they realized part of the way through. You remember the Shockmaster when they were like, well, shit, this isn't gonna work, so let's just make him clumsy. Like at one point, let's just make these guys fucking. They're already goofs. Let's just make them bigger goofs. Then you know what? Maybe I'll be on board if they're like tripping over things and fucking Three Stooges and they're trying to do all this stuff and.
Let's be honest though, the Shockmaster was not going to work even if he didn't trip.
No, it was.
Star Wars helmet on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and they took the pantyhose from the girl and they cut the eye things so he could have like see. They drilled holes in the thing because it was all spray paint. Oh God, it's such a mess.
And the awful that Ole Anderson was doing the voice, and it was
Ole Anderson. He was doing like he sounded like Dr. Claw. Right. Yeah, he sounded like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. For sure. But yeah, I mean, I just feel for these teams that are splitting up and these like. Because Peyton Royce and Billy Kay have been a team for a very long time, and not just in WWE or NXT, like on the Indies. They were friends. I mean, they moved from like Australia together. Like that's a big leap to take, and I don't know why there has to be a Shawn Michaels and a Marty Jannetty for every tag team in WWE. There doesn't have to be if they're because the definition of WWE superstars that you are good enough to make it to the main roster of WWE. So it shouldn't be there's one shitty wrestler and one good wrestler on every tag team. So when they split up, we've got to tell you immediately who's the good wrestler and who's the shitty.
Yeah, they've been perfectly doing it ever since the Rockers breakup.
Right, but it's like, why did Billy Kay even need to be? Why did either of those girls need to be in the underground? Why did Billy Kay need to be thrown into the ring like that? To get kicked in the head by like some like drug addict from Portland who lives under a bridge, and like I don't know who I know who Jessamine Duke is. I'm being sarcastic, but like they dressed like fucking homeless people and they were kicking people in the face, and like what the fuck are we doing here? So like it's none of it. Again,
last night. Weird.
Yeah, that like it looked like she was wearing a laundry bag, like something.
Yeah, and like a weird dress and a hat.
Right, yeah. So it was like a weird hat and then like this dress that looked like it was made out of potato sack cloth or something. I don't know. But it was just the whole thing is weird. It didn't work for me. That Raw Underground thing, I appreciate they're trying something different. It stinks. It's not working whatever they're trying to do.
I can't get into it either.
Because there's no story. At first, it seemed like Shane opened this thing up, and then like the Hurt Business was going to come in and take over. And now where the fuck have they been? And now Titus is choke slamming people in a shoot fight. When do you ever choke slam somebody in a shoot fight? This shit doesn't happen. If it's an MMA fight, at least make it look like an MMA fight. I'm sorry. Again, I'm an old man. I'm Jim Cornette in a younger, slimmer body, but I still appreciate like things making sense. If it's a shoot fight underground fight club, it's a shoot fight underground fight club. You shouldn't be doing Hurricane Ranas and DDTs and shit. That's not what that venue is for. But there's no belt. There's no purpose. There's no champion. There's no, last week Dolph Ziggler won 3 matches in the underground, so he's the king of the underground this week. Who's going to so next week, Titus O'Neil's going to come back and he's going to challenge, and can he become king of the underground? That's at least a story. I don't give a shit about either of those guys, but at least it's something.
I almost feel like people should be exclusive to just the underground.
That would make it give it a little bit more. I don't want to say danger.
Then they'll pop up in the main roster, and then it's like,
Yeah, because of so Shane made a big coup. And he goes, I signed Braun Strowman to the underground or whatever. Ooh, that's a big deal. And he just goes in there and murders people with his, he just punches them and kills them. Okay, and then when he shows back up on Raw or SmackDown, Michael Cole goes, oh my God, what's Braun Strowman doing here? It's Braun time. We only see him on the underground. Like, at least, again, it establishes that there's a brand that you're working for and you're contracted with, and then if you show up somewhere else, it's a surprise. It just, I don't know. It shouldn't be an open door policy. You should have, if it's a fight club, like the book and the movie Fight Club, you should be invited. You have to get jumped in. You have to, the first night you're there, you have to fight. Rules like that. Like, if it's an underground fight club, it's got to have underground fight club rules. It can't just be here's wrestling in a ring with no ropes. That's me.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I really don't.
And I will get my AARP card in the mail next week.
No, I agree too. Here's someone I feel bad about, Karrion Kross.
Oh,
I mean,
that's rough. Because he even tried to
Timing
say,
of that is so awful.
yeah, he tried to kayfabe in an interview, and he's like, "Oh no, the doctors say it's not going to be that long." And then apparently the doctors said it was going to be that long because he.
How long are they saying now?
You know, initially they said, "Oh, and Rey's injured too, Rey Mysterio." Cross, they were only saying it was supposed to be like 2 months, but that was when they thought it wasn't very severe. It could be a 6-month job, but
It's
then that
separated
means he can,
together, right?
yeah. So I mean, that's 6 months, 9 months. I mean, remember Sami Zayn had two of them done at the same time, and he was out for a year. So it really just depends on. I mean, he's in good shape. He's got good conditioning. He's a pretty young guy. He'll bounce back from it quickly. Hopefully, he doesn't try and force it and come back too quick. But I think the whole idea was neat. So unfortunately, it makes Keith Lee look like a huge dork that he lost to this guy, and then all of a sudden he gives up the title the next day. And Keith Lee has 0 titles because he gave up the North American title and lost the NXT title, and then moved to Raw and then lost the #1 contendership. So he kind of looks like a dork, but I still have faith. You know,
Shit, they're gonna have to give Keith Lee the Royal Rumble at this point.
I mean, shit. Okay, so I've got a theory on that too, but I'll tell you in a second. The thing with Karrion Kross, he came out, and I liked it because he tipped the what do you call it? Hourglass.
Yeah,
Like
he started it as a heel, TikTok.
Right. So, but so at the end he gave up the belt, turned the thing, and the sand is running. So there's just the clock is running again for him to come back. So that the next time Scarlett shows up on the stage with the sand running through the hourglass, and you can see just a little bit in the top and a lot in the bottom, and you're like, oh, he's coming back. Like, that's going to be their thing, is they're going to show a video or put just the hourglass up or have Scarlett out there. It's going to be out there, and the sand is all going to empty out of the top, and then boom, fall.
That's a pretty amazing idea. That's up with like Randy Orton's RNN updates.
If they were smart, they would have Scarlett come out every now and then with the hourglass to give the update rather than video.
Right. Yes, a little bit, and every time it's a little bit less.
Right.
Yeah, that would be, I mean...
Because all she has to do is that slow walk to the ring, put it on the apron, turn around, walk away, and everybody's happy.
And then everybody, whoever has the title and they're wrestling that night or whatever it is, they can just sit there and stare at it. Like,
yeah, it's going to fuck with their minds. It's great.
Tonight is a special NXT Super Tuesday, 60-minute Iron Man match, 4-way Iron Man match for the NXT title with 4 men who've all held the NXT title. And what if she comes out? I mean, that would be cool if she came out with the hourglass, put it on a podium, and was like, "You guys got to look. Whoever wins this title, just know that this fucking thing's, when it runs out, you're in the shit."
It'll come to an end eventually.
Yeah, right. It's going to come to fruition. So I hope I have big hopes that Karrion Kross, because it just sucks. He went to Impact. He was doing okay there, and he wanted more money. I get it. He was kind of a dick to get him to drop their contract, and the same thing with Scarlett. But it's business. They're trying to make more money. They're trying to make a living. And they got, there was interest from bigger companies. I think AEW was interested in him as well. And,
oh yeah.
More power to him that he was able to negotiate a good deal. But then,
it's
the injury it's like Finn Balor, the injury at the worst possible time.
It's an unfortunate circumstance, but at the very least, that it's like they're going all in with Kross.
Yeah, I kind of think it was a blessing in disguise, honestly, because
like Ciampa's injury, like that kind of thing.
Right. Well, I think it was it was like the Fiend. It was too soon to give him the title. You needed to ruminate. This is a creepy guy with him and Roman Reigns have the biggest, now that Charlotte's gone, it's him and Roman Reigns with the biggest subway tile teeth on the roster. But he's this creepy guy who looks like, when you think of a prison guard that beats up the inmates, that's Karrion Kross.
That's a menacing looking dude, yeah.
Right, he looks like a guy in what was it, the Longest Yard. He looks like one of those prison guards that would just go and beat the shit out of one of the inmates in the prison yard. He just has this look about him. So
He was the White Rabbit in Lucha Underground.
yeah, and he had to. So I feel like they hot-shotted it to get him the title because they wanted Keith Lee on Raw. But
Yeah,
really,
I did think they rushed that.
they needed to ruminate on it a little bit and give it a little more room to breathe and build an aura around. Not that they didn't build an aura, they did what they could in the time they had, but I feel like they could really have built an aura around him, getting wins, choking guys out, and just kind of like basically choke everybody else out on the roster so the only person left is the champion. And then you've got, then that's where where Cross wins the title, but he's injured, so I feel like this is going to be that for him. It's going to save him. They didn't burn him out. He won the title and then gave it up, so he didn't have to go and feud with Cameron Grimes or some horseshit thing for 3 weeks, and then everybody hates him. So there's at least anticipation for him to come back. You mentioned the Royal Rumble, Eric. I have a theory that ties back in to the SmackDown title, Universal title finish for Payback. And I don't know. It all just seems a little too convenient. Roman Reigns pairs himself with Paul Heyman, wins the title in his first match back. The next day, oh, look at that. You go to WWEshop.com, and there's no more Brock Lesnar merchandise. Oh, he was taken off the roster page for WWE. Oh, he's a free agent. Oh, the UFC wants to book him against John Jones. Oh, Bellator wants to book him against Fedor Emelianenkovic or whatever the fuck. This all just... now I'm going from Jim Cornette to Vince Russo. It's all a swerve, bro. This is all... Listen, trust me. Hear me out. Roman Reigns is with Heyman because he recognizes that Heyman can get him where he wants to be. He has the title. He's accomplished what he needed. Paul Heyman is now the same advisor role that he was with Brock when Brock had the title, to make sure that the title defenses are spaced out and that he gets to pick his challengers and pick the stipulation, all this kind of stuff. Until the Royal Rumble, when Brock Lesnar returns and wins and faces Roman at WrestleMania, and then Roman beats him because we finally have to get that fucking match out of the way at WrestleMania. What I'm saying is this all builds Payback, and the Friday Night SmackDown before it are all building to Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar again at WrestleMania. Only this time, Reigns is going to have the title, Brock's going to be the challenger, and then Reigns is going to win.
Oh, God.
Mark it down. Somebody write that down. If it happens, go back and pull this audio.
I mean, unfortunately, it makes a lot of sense.
I know, it doesn't. It makes too much sense. I sat there and thought about it. I'm like, oh, shit, we're just going to get Brock Roman, but the titles, it's going to be flipped. Brock's the challenger this time.
Oh, fucking A.
But I don't know. I mean, but it would be different because then Brock would come back as like a babyface, right? Or would it be a double turn and Heyman realigns himself with Brock because it was a slow play for the whole 6 months?
I mean, that would definitely be a Heyman.
Wouldn't it be a Heyman thing to do?
Exactly why I was thinking this shit. I was like, this seems like a Heyman thing to do. Lure Roman in, give him a false sense of security. He's got the title. In the back of his mind, he's going, well, Brock Lesnar's beaten this guy like 18 times, so he's just keeping the title warm until my real pick, Brock Lesnar, comes back. And maybe that's the story they're telling. I don't want to go around the block again to this thing, but I feel like Vince McMahon has it stuck in his craw that WrestleMania 31, he couldn't do the title finish that he wanted because the fans were going to shit on it. And the year before, he couldn't do the title match he wanted because the fans shit on it and changed it so that Daniel Bryan had to win. And he's just, in the back of his mind, he's going, I'm going to get these fucking marks one of these days. We gotta butter him up. We gotta lube him up. And then we're going to ram Roman Reigns straight into their asshole at WrestleMania. And I feel like that's his plan. I'm so sorry to bring you down, bro.
No,
I'm so sorry.
That's why I picked Keith Lee to win the Rumble.
Right. It just makes too much sense. Right.
It does make too much sense. I mean,
Keith should win the Rumble and go against McIntyre.
Yeah.
Keith Lee McIntyre at WrestleMania would be good.
Well, that actually they've been kind of teasing that already.
Which would, I would give them a lot of credit to actually do long-term storytelling which is what we've been asking for, if they have the plan now that it's Keith Lee against Drew McIntyre for WrestleMania, if they can not get ADD and keep this shit on track, then maybe it's going to be, I hate to sound hopeful on any of this because recent history has told me not to be hopeful at all, because it's just going to go back to the same old horse shit that we've been experiencing the last, whatever, couple years. Or actually just really the last year since Seth Rollins became uncool and then they almost killed The Fiend within the first 2 months of him existing. But they turned The Fiend around.
The Fiend is still the most entertaining thing they got going on.
Yeah, can I just tell you, I'm so over Seth Rollins. I just don't care. I don't care. How many times are we going to do this Seth Rollins and somebody Mysterio feud? How many times is fucking one of the Hurt Business going to wrestle Apollo? They already took the title off him. You don't need to wrestle him anymore. Like, why is Shelton wrestling Apollo all of a sudden? What the fuck?
Yeah, we definitely need to move on. I agree with you. It's overkill already. Even the same thing with the Street Profits and Garza and Andrade.
Right.
It's like now it's time. We need to switch it up. We got to get another team in there.
Yeah. Well, I think
Can I just say Garza running away it was the funniest thing last night.
him, and then there was a referee that did it too.
Yeah.
He was just like, "Nope, I'm out." Which is at this point, it's
No, that's the second time.
yeah, no, you don't want to get beat up by fucking 4 midgets and Dijak. I just feel like what happened was a couple months ago, the perception was, oh, things are going to be opening back up and we're going to have crowds. So WWE ran these stories that were kind of cyclical, where people feuded with each other a bunch of times over the course of the pay-per-views, and they all just kind of rolled back around into each other. And then there was a point where they go, okay, listen, things aren't opening back up for a while. We got to fix it. So they changed it up and changed the feuds, and everybody kind of did do-si-do and changed partners. But then they're like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we can open back up to crowds. So I feel like they're doing it again, where they're doing another loop where they're like, okay, if we can get live crowds back, real crowds, we're going to do XYZ thing, and we need it in front of a live audience because it's going to mean more in front of a live audience. Keith Lee winning the title, whatever it is, will mean more in front of a live audience. So we're just going to keep looping around until, until Apollo Crews gets his 57th rematch for the U.S. title in front of a live crowd, and then what? They've seen it 57 times. They just have to realize it's a wash. They just have to take this as it is what it is. You have to just do the angle that you're going to do, regardless of whether or not you're going to get crowds back, because you don't know when you're going to get crowds back.
Yeah, that's true.
So I just, they can't just keep going back to the well and like, I'm glad Baron Corbin lost, and I hope that means he's done with Matt Riddle. I have zero interest in Baron Corbin as a wrestler, as a personality, as a whatever. He's made his money. He's doing okay for himself. He'll have a job for life or whatever the fuck. But like, I just don't care. I can't be brought to care about that guy.
I do enjoy Riddle though.
Riddle, yeah, but it just bummed me out. I'm like, oh man, they're putting him with this asshole, and then he's gonna lose to him. But he didn't. I mean, at least he did, because if I picked that Corbin was gonna beat him because I'm like, I know how this goes. This guy just came up from NXT, and he's got to face the gatekeeper here, but he's got to he's got to take his licks and take his bumps first to show he's going to do business, and then they'll put him over. But that was nice that they didn't. I was pleasantly surprised. I think two of the three that I got wrong were Keith Lee and Matt Riddle. I forget what the other one was. Oh, U.S. title. Those were the three that I got wrong for Payback. But yeah, man, it's just there has to be a progression. Like in AEW, they're not going back to feuds. They're doing a feud and ending it and then going to something else. And then if it comes back to that, they can go back to it. But they're not just repeating it. Like Brody Lee challenged Cody for the TNT title, like pretty much when he debuted, like 6 months ago or whatever it was.
Right.
And lost. But he didn't feud with Cody for the next 6 months and then rematch after rematch, and then he finally beat him. Cody beat him, so Brody had to go back down to the bottom of the order and had to work his way back up. and Cody had 10 or 15 more challengers. Sonny Kiss, Scorpio Sky, etc., Ricky Starks, different people, Eddie Kingston. He had a bunch of people that he challenged with, but in the meantime, Brody Lee is picking up wins in the background to up his ranking. So then he can challenge Cody again because he got on a winning streak. And then when he beats Cody, it means more because they didn't wrestle 57 times on television. It meant more. And now Cody, they had a fucking funeral for him last week. The Dark Order brought out a casket and put the Nightmare family, Cody's ugly ass neck tattoo. They had a big flag and they put it over a casket like a military funeral. So like, they're buried. I mean, I know Cody's going off to film that Showtime show with Stephen Amell, but like, it made an impact on the show. It's affecting the story going forward. And now Brody, because Cody's off TV, Brody Lee isn't going to have an immediate rematch. I'm calling on my automatic rematch. It's not happening. Brody Lee's going to have to run through all these challengers to show that he's just as good as Cody was at holding his title. And then when Cody gets back, then we have some fireworks. Cody has to earn his title shot, get back to the number one contender, and then challenge Brody. And you've got Cody Brody 3 at whatever the pay-per-view is going to be in 6 months. So, like, that's what I appreciate about it, as opposed to the U.S. title, where it was Apollo Crews and then MVP, and then it was on Bobby Lashley, and MVP stole the title from Apollo Crews because Apollo Crews was sick 1 week, so he couldn't make it to all this horse shit that doesn't mean anything because the title bounced around too much. Keep it on one guy, and then when the other guy beats him, it's a big deal.
I can't argue with any of that. I mean,
I'm only 33. I'm not an old man. I'm only 33, but I think like an old man.
Well, it's not that though. But what you're saying makes complete sense. That's been one of my beefs for a while too. It's the constant title changes. Like it devalues the championship, and it devalues the person. Like, listen, the Fiend's gonna get by regardless. At the end of the day, his character, he doesn't even need the title. Like,
Right, he's going to be like an Undertaker type of thing where he doesn't really need the title.
Right. But at the same time, you give it back to him for a week,
Yeah, that's shitty. Like, I was going to start off this show. If you didn't start it with Roman Reigns music, I was going to be real sarcastic and say this is a, R.I.P. Braun Strowman memorial show. Because they just fucking killed him dead on that pay-per-view. I mean, you look like a huge asshole at SummerSlam because you took a knife and you cut open the ring to expose the wood, and then the guy hits you with his finish on the wood, and you lose the title. And then you get pinned by the other guy who just shows up. Like, Braun looks like a big asshole. And The Fiend, he didn't take the pin, which is fine. But it was just so... It was such a Iron Sheik beating Bob Backlund so Hulk Hogan could beat the Iron Sheik kind of thing that it was just like, what are we doing? It was just too many cooks. There were too many fingers in the pot. I just don't, they could have simplified it. They really could have simplified it, but.
Yeah, but when do they ever simplify things?
This is true.
I mean, this is just, I do think it's been getting better. I think overall, I like the Thunderdome. I do. It's better than the alternative. Why
can't they just tell everybody to have the same color background? That's all I want. That's the only thing that I don't like about it. I like the concept. I like the way they set it up because it's tiered. So you have the front row and then there's a little bit of depth and then there's a second row. But the problem is when there are certain times, if everybody has different backgrounds, it all looks flat. That's like when Big E posted the thing of Guess Who. With the name, the pictures, and you flip it down. It looks like that little board game. Oh, does he have red hair? No, and you flip it down. It's a depth issue. So I think that if they could try and figure out a way to get everybody on a black background or white, just everybody on the same color background, I feel like would just add a little less. It's a little too chaotic for me. Like it would just standardize it. But again, it's an opportunity for fans to watch the show in a way that they couldn't watch it before and interact with the show. It's not a terrible idea. It's just there are little tweaks that if they can just keep tweaking it as they go along, they'll be on the right track.
Well, Vince, what about this? Like a all red background for Raw, all blue for SmackDown, all black for NXT.
Yeah, I like that. And even you could even
And
do
a
like
special one for the pay-per-views.
right, and it doesn't even have to be like a solid color. It could be like, like the background of when they show like a superstar's picture on Twitter or like the match card between like, one guy and another guy, and it's blue, but it's like blue and it's dark blue, but there's a part that's a little lighter and it's got like some pattern. Just give us a little something here. I really don't want to see people's tchotchkes in their living room. Like that's
Yeah,
just
or their Benoit signs with their KKK things.
right. And the guy laying down on his bed with his head on his pillow, watching it from his phone. Like, come on, bro. What are you doing?
How about Kenny Omega?
What about him?
He was on. He was in the Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah.
And
That was great.
like, it was fucking hilarious because somebody like posted it and was like, "Was that really you?" And he's like, "Yeah, that was me."
I was just trying to have a little fun. I didn't think anybody would notice. But I mean, that's good. And that would be another fun thing. Like,
That's hilarious.
now there's no more hacker, so this couldn't work. But if the hacker still existed, what if they hacked the Thunderdome and then instead of showing all of these like hundreds of people, it just all of the little screens become a big screen and show the back of the hacker sitting at a computer screen, and you can't see his face, but you can see like the hood on his head and like the glow from the computer, and he's like, voice modulating, "I am the hacker. I have hacked the Thunderdome. Here are my demands. I want a United States Championship match with Bobby Lashley," or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like, they have this beautiful technology here that they paid a lot of money for. I want them to utilize it to the best possible way that they could utilize it.
Dude, that gave me goosebumps, your idea. Holy
Wouldn't
shit.
that be so, like, remember like V for Vendetta? And in the middle of V for Vendetta, he hacks the British like the BBC, and you see Guy Fawkes in his mask and his hat, and he's giving the speech, and like it's on the big TV in downtown London, and then like kids when they're turning on their TV in their living rooms, the only thing they can get is Guy Fawkes from V for Vendetta. So like, yeah, something like that where the hacker could just be like this larger than life, like Oz, the great and powerful.
I don't know why they ever deaded the whole hacker thing. That was kind of an interesting thing too, and then it just dropped dead out of nowhere.
Right. But that's the frustrating thing, and that's why when we talk about, well, what's going to happen with Alexa and the Fiend? What's going to happen with?
The answer is most likely nothing, unfortunately.
What's going to happen with Keith Lee?
I don't believe that.
Right, but we've been built up. It's like battered wife syndrome or something, Stockholm syndrome. You've come to expect that they're going to build this up to nothing, and then just move on because that's what they've done. So I just hope that's not the case. I want to prove it wrong.
She's even starting to twirl her hair and braid it like him. Like, this is obviously going somewhere.
Yeah, those subtle little things, yeah.
Do you think Alexa gets a mask, like skin mask over her face?
I think they should do that, or she should really like start like doing her makeup like a Harley Quinn type of like.
I think they're gonna have to build every week.
Yeah, because it's almost like, every week, like she's changed her outfit, her hair. Now she's starting to braid it, and then she had that confrontation with Nikki where she was like normal, and then all of a sudden snapped and went crazy, almost like a Harley Quinn. So it looks like this is happening. It's just a matter of how far WWE takes it, and if they don't fuck it up, because
But I mean, it's just weird that the way this partnership, if we're going to call it that, started was essentially the Fiend sexually assaulting her by sticking his fingers down her throat. You know what I mean? Like, this is like.
Well, but remember, the whole concept is every time you have an encounter with the Fiend, it changes you.
Yeah.
So.
But it's just funny. It's just like, the lesson little girls learn is like, it's okay to be with your abuser. He really loves you. He hurts you because he loves you. It's like, that's not the story you want to tell. And hopefully by the end of it, that's not the story they end up telling. Like, I don't want this to be a romance. I don't want the Fiend and her to be emotionally involved. I want it to be more like an Undertaker Paul Bearer situation where for whatever reason It doesn't even have to be something physical like the urn, but maybe it could be the Firefly lantern. I don't know. But she has some sort of power over him. Like, he's a very powerful being, but then she's like the Beastmaster. She can direct him and tell him what to do. That would
She
be
can
an
control
interesting-
him.
She's the
Yeah.
Blaster Master. She's the guy sitting on the shoulders. Yeah.
So you don't want like a Mickey and Mallory natural born killers type of thing?
I like that.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, I love that movie.
They're also psychotic.
Yeah, so I mean that could work. It just seems like it was the way the story started, and with the character of Alexa Bliss being established so far along, over these last couple of years, it was such an abrupt change that for her to be afraid of the Fiend and all this, and then to all of a sudden being, oh no, when I'm gonna take your hand and hold your hand and all this other stuff. I don't know if they'll be able to tell that complex of a relationship in this setting, only because, like, with Natural Born Killers, it's a movie. It's 2 hours long. They go back and show you. Remember what was No Respect? He was the dad.
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield.
Right. So
was
Rodney
the-
Dangerfield was like the dad, the father. They did a flashback and they showed kind of like how she became what she was, and like you understand that it was a years-long relationship where they became dependent on each other, and like there's such a history between those two characters. It's hard to tell that in a short amount of time, but we'll see if they can pull it off. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I just think, I think that the way that they should go, it shouldn't be a romantic thing. It should be a supernatural. Alexa Bliss is the reincarnation of Abigail, and A.B. Alexa Bliss, Abigail. She was leaving him notes the entire time that it was really her.
Well, that's why I pitched a thing where, Alexa's always been Abigail. It's just there was like a switch that turned on or something.
Yes, yeah, and that
Like that.
if they were able to go back and put little like breadcrumbs in, like pulling stuff from different matches in her history that like show her doing similar moves to Bray Wyatt, or like somehow kind of hinting, and they go, oh wow, all this stuff kind of adds up to her being Sister Abigail or whatever the case is.
Newsmen lip sync Snoop Dogg songs, then they can do this.
Yes, Tupac, in fact, was in a his Snoop Dogg music video, which was amazing. So, Eric, I'll send the link later. But there's a company on YouTube called Corridor Digital, and they did that video, and they had a guy that was a Tupac impersonator that they had recorded, and then they did some software stuff where they did a face replacement, and it looks just fucking like him.
Stop hitting the table. Chappelle Show.
But they've planted the seeds for long-term storytelling for some of this stuff, like the Apollo stuff. Obviously not the Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, Dominic stuff. I don't know if they ever had a fucking plan for it. It seems like they're just doing whatever they want every week, and but there's stories like Roman. There's a story there. Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. There's a story there. So I feel like there's the Fiend, Alexa Bliss thing. There's potential for long-term storytelling.
The Hurt Business is killing it.
The Hurt Business is killed, but they need to move on.
Yeah, they
They
do
need to
need
move to like, even if somebody came in and helped Apollo against them, and then that person challenged for the U.S. title for a while.
Yeah.
And if you want to give it back to Apollo, you can, but at least break it up and put somebody else in the mix.
And I'm still thinking that one of those guys is going to end up with the Hurt Business.
I feel like it's going to be Cedric.
Yeah.
I really feel. I mean, I thought this months ago, but then now they're sort of not teasing it because they're not really subtle. It looks like Cedric's going to go heel, and maybe he'll go with the Hurt Business. I'd like it. I think that would be a good opportunity for him, because Shelton MVP are older gentlemen. Excuse me for yawning. They're older guys. They're towards the back end of their career. Bobby Lashley is younger than them or around the same age, but I feel like he's still got a lot more in the tank to go. But then eventually, Cedric, if they built him right and put him with that group, he could be the guy like in The Nation when The Rock was, Farouk was the big name, and then The Rock was added to the group, and The Rock kind of became The Rock. So maybe, and I'm not saying Cedric Alexander is going to become The Rock and own the XFL and shit. But what I'm saying is if they bring him in the group as the underling or the understudy or the second in command, and then he builds his way up, then he becomes the big deal out of the Hurt Business. And then maybe they do an Evolution style breakup or a Nation of Domination breakup where The Rock becomes the leader. And, what if Cedric has Bobby Lashley and Shelton kick MVP out of the group? And you do like a little Nation of Domination style. Now Cedric's the leader.
Yeah. We'll have like a tremendous learning tree to be under.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those three guys.
And he's already, Cedric is so fucking good. He just, he's another guy like Ricochet where they are so athletic. I think Cedric is a better promo than Ricochet, but they're still both not Stone Cold Steve Austin or Ric Flair. So I don't know if they know what to do with them. They don't realize that like you could put Ricochet or Cedric with a manager and just let them wrestle, and then like they're good enough wrestlers, and then the manager gets the heat. Like that's what they've been doing. That's what they did for wrestling for 100 years. That's the foundation of wrestling. If you can't talk, you hire a manager who can. Freddie Blassie made a living out of it.
Right.
So
And
that would be nice for
in that role.
Right. And imagine Cedric is part of the Hurt Business, and you've got MVP gassing him up in promos and putting him over in front of the crowd and working everybody up. And it's MVP's mic work. And then when the bell rings, it's Cedric Alexander's ring work. Holy shit. Like, yeah, it's such a good pairing. It seems obvious. And
It's very him and Lesnar,
Mm-hmm.
Or now him and Roman.
Yeah, so Bobby Lashley's he's been calling out Brock Lesnar since he came back to WWE, and they seem like dead set against it. But I would be, I know.
I think I'd like to see that before Brock actually does leave.
I agree with you. I absolutely.
All right.
Real quick, before I don't want to end it on a sour note necessarily, because we could jump off this for right after. I just wanted to give my condolences to WWE Hall of Famer Bullet Bob Armstrong that passed away last week. Father, Road Dogg, the Armstrong family, Scott, Steve, the late Brad, trailblazer in the business. And unrelated, I just wanted to say condolences to the family of Chadwick Boseman.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wakanda forever. I'm still not quite, processing that. So just wanted to give my condolences. But
hasn't
any last minute things that we need to? I think we covered everything.
Yeah,
I think that's about it.
As Bill and Ted, who have a new movie that just came out, would say, "Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes." So that's the real moral of the story. Also, real quick, Rick Drayson, former bodybuilder, former professional wrestler, trained Luchasaurus, trained Jungle Boy, trained a bunch of people over there on the West Coast. He passed away at 76. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's training partner, and you'd probably remember him from Pumping Iron. And he passed away again, like I said, 76 years old. So condolences to him as well, because he was a big figure in bodybuilding. He was a big figure in professional wrestling. And finally, before we do all of our plugs, this is more of a local thing, and I guess maybe I should turn the camera off this. Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I am not affiliated with them anyway. I've been to a couple of their shows. I know several guys that work the shows. Mario Mancini, who you may remember from the WWF, is the owner of Paradise Alley. East Haven, Connecticut government has decided that PAPW's training school that you have to be 18 years of age or older to go to is now qualified as adult entertainment in the same respect as like basically a porno shop or a strip club. They've classified them as adult entertainment in an attempt to shut down not just the school, but them running their regular monthly shows. Obviously, they haven't been running, but they've kept the school open as best they could throughout this, and they've started doing more now because it seems to be Connecticut's got really good numbers.
That's fucking ridiculous.
So there's if you look, there's a couple guys. Bull Dread's one of them. Ron Zombie's another one. If you look on their Facebook pages, there's going to be a couple links to petitions. There's going to be so if you feel like, all it takes is you literally click, you put your name on it, you sign the petition. They're looking for like really not a lot, 250 or 500 signatures, something like that, just to show the town of East Haven, Connecticut, that they're serious about this. And like I said, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I'm just offended on their behalf that somebody in local government has a hair across their ass about wrestling. They think it's still 1998 where people are cutting themselves with razor blades and getting power bombed onto light tubes and horse shit like that. Like, that's not what they do. They run a training school where they're trying to train the next generation of professional wrestlers. They don't do I've never seen them do a hardcore match. You know, maybe they'll do a street fight and somebody gets hit with like a kendo stick or something, but like nobody's getting lit on fire. It's not obscene. It's not pornographic. There's no nudity. There's no really bad language. It's a family show. They design these shows so that when people bring their children, they can go and watch wrestling. There was a time where you couldn't do that. You had to be a teenager or an adult to attend a wrestling event because it was rough and rowdy and there was swearing and titties and all kinds of stuff. That's not the case. PAPW is just running. I mean, it's such a little show. They get like 200 or 300 people. How does somebody have a fucking problem with it? So look online. There's a petition. Look for PAPW, East Haven, Connecticut. Like I said, Bull Dread has it. Ron Zombie has it. A couple of the local Connecticut guys. If you're hooked into the independent scene, they'll have the petition. Put your name on it. There's a phone number. If you're really feeling motivated, you can call the town council and let them know how you feel. I think I'm going to call tomorrow just to give them my 2 cents. But, like, it's terrible. It's a terrible thing. That, especially now, when so many businesses are shut down, this is a small business. They train like 20 people. They're not running, you know, this isn't the performance center. This is a small business trying to make it in a very tough time where a lot of businesses have shut down and couldn't afford to reopen and can't afford to reopen. So, you know,
do what you can.
Whatever we can do as a community. Independent wrestling is a very strong, connected community. And
Yeah, keep independent wrestling alive. Yeah.
you know, even though I've never worked one of their shows, I know a lot of guys. I work with a lot of guys that have. They're good friends of mine. Mario Mancini, regardless of his win-loss record, is a fucking legend in wrestling. You should respect a guy who is trying to listen. Wrestling is all. I don't want to say it's all he's got, but when you've been wrestling for 40 years, that's all you got, man. That's what he's got. That's what he's good at. If he's gonna train these kids, more power to him. And the fucking government, especially by saying they're adult entertainment and putting them in the same category as a strip club and an adult movie theater, it's fucking terrible. So something has to be done about it. That's my rant. I'm not going to go for too much longer.
And on that note, we'll see you next week.
That's right. Thank you for tuning into the War Report, brought to you by TagMeADate.com, the first and only dating site exclusively for fans of professional wrestling. We're taking a little break while we try and reset and figure out exactly how dating works in the year 2020. So we'll let you know when the website is relaunched and redesigned and back up. The best way to follow that is to follow our social media at TagMeADate. That's all one word, at TagMeADate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, all over the place. Any of your major social media sites, just look for at TagMeADate. I'm sure you'll find us. If you prefer a audio version of the podcast, it comes out on Wednesdays because our show is live on Tuesdays, so it comes out the next day, Wednesday. Audio only on Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts. All you need to do, again, is you put Tag Me a Date in, you search for it, you hit the subscribe button. The audio version will pop right into your device, whatever it may be, when it's ready to go, when it's uploaded that next day. If you're watching live, we have a Facebook stream. I think we have a YouTube stream. It's been up and down. And then we have I think we have a Twitch stream.
YouTube is working.
YouTube's working.
Yes,
Woo!
YouTube and Facebook, everything's working.
YouTube and Facebook. Excellent. So if you go to YouTube, and if you want to subscribe to our channel, of course, you go to youtube.com, search for Tag Me a Date, all one word, no spaces. Hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications, and we will be back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. here on Eastern Time for another edition of the War Report. Thank you so much for listening. Share it. Tell your friends. If you like it, that's the important part. If you like it and you have friends that like wrestling, tell your friends about us. We don't bite unless you ask politely. We're nice people. We love talking wrestling. We love getting feedback, and we love having more viewers. So if you think that you have a friend that would be want to get plugged into this podcast and give us a listen, please share it with them. It's only an hour. It's not like they're going to sit there for a 2.5 hour long podcast or anything. We're here to talk wrestling and talk about the future and the things that are coming up. So thank you again for watching.